Stress eating is something that affects so many of us: men, women, non-binary, young, old, athletes, people that are really healthy eaters, people that don't really identify with healthy eating. This is such a universal pattern common to the human condition that today I want to strip back the shame and just have a curious and non-judgmental conversation around stress eating and some tricks and tools to help yourself, or maybe you're a nutrition coach and you want to help some clients that you work with overcome a pattern of stress eating or stress drinking in their own lives. My name is Jennifer Broxterman. I'm a registered dietitian and one of the co-founders of Prosper Nutrition Coaching, and I am so excited to dive into this topic with you today. Let's get right into things. So the tool I would like to introduce today is something I created for my private practice clients, and it's called If Feelings Could Talk. So the premise of this particular activity is to identify that when someone stress eats or when you stress eat, it's usually connected to filling a void or trying to meet a feeling, changing an emotional state. So if we think about why our brains are using this as a strategy, it's generally trying to change our internal chemicals, usually more affected by things like serotonin levels and dopamine, to feel better. So what are some of the drivers or some of the emotional drivers behind stress eating? Well, there's a lot. It could be sadness, it could be boredom, it could be overwhelm, it could be anger or frustration, it could be just a lack of excitement in your life. There's so many different things going on behind stress eating. And so if you understand from a place of curiosity, not from a place of judgment, why our brain might go back to this particular behavior, it's a learned coping mechanism. So our brain has started to learn that when I feel this uncomfortable feeling or this, bored feeling or just not feeling 100% my best, and I use food or alcohol or insert, coping mechanism of choice, then I come out on the other side actually feeling better. So our brain likes to repeat patterns that makes itself feel better. Let me give you an example of what doesn't fit this pattern. My guess is none of you watching this video turn on your oven for fun, get the hot plate scalding hot, and you walk over and you touch it to burn your fingertips. I bet that is not an encoded pattern. Well, why not? Let's debrief that for a second to help us better understand why we do things like stress eating. Well, the reason why I'm guessing you don't go and burn yourself on your oven is it doesn't bring any pleasure on the other side of the equation. You don't come out of a scalding hot second or third degree burn and go, I really enjoyed that. I think I'm going to remember to do that again in the future. So anything that causes us immediate pain, our brain doesn't really like to encode and go, I should repeat that pattern. That felt good. Now, if we put stress eating or stress drinking through that particular loop, and we look at it just with curiosity on the immediate benefit that our brain might get, you'll start to notice that there is actually some positives that come out of stress eating. So I know that sounds really weird to say, what are the positives of stress eating? But if we look at it non-judgmentally, if someone is really anxious and they stress eat a whole bunch of candy, for instance, in that moment, maybe they like the aggressive chewing of a gummy. Maybe they feel a little bit of a high from the sugar or a numbing out, and they're distracted from their pain or their problem or their overwhelm. Maybe it gives them a quick burst of energy. So maybe it's a student studying for final exams and it gives them a second wind to keep going, in their textbook to learn the information for an upcoming test. So there's a reason why our brain has learned to associate some kind of a positive out of that particular behavior. And so the resource I've created for my clients is called If Feelings Could Talk. And this particular resource helps you start to understand the connection between the feeling on the left side and the positive, or what we could maybe do instead on the right-hand side to help ourselves with the feeling. So sadness, for instance, maybe you just need a really good cry, Or if you don't identify as being someone who cries and lets things out with tears, maybe you actually just need to sit in grief and acknowledge that there is some sadness, some loss. Maybe there's been a bereavement or death in the family. Maybe you're grieving a relationship that's come to an end, or the loss of a particular friendship, or loneliness, for instance. Maybe if we're feeling all alone and disconnected, what we need is not to, soothe ourselves over a bag of potato chips, but maybe we need to call a friend, call our mom, talk to a therapist, hang out with a pet and give them scratches and cuddles. So connection sometimes is what we actually need when we stress eat in response to loneliness. Maybe we're just really bored. We're in the same old with our job, the same old with our routine. And that's a cue that you need some excitement in your life. Maybe you need to just daydream and look at booking a trip. Maybe you need to plan a little weekend getaway. Maybe you can pull out an activity, a board game, a puzzle, find a game on your phone, do something that kind of shakes it up from the same old routine. For a lot of people, there's a ton of shame associated with stress eating. And so what I want you to do, if you're someone whose inner bully gets down on you, is we're going to kick that inner bully out to the curb, first and foremost. Or if you're a coach of a client, you can feel that there's a lot of self-judgment and shame around a bad behavior, we're just going to ask that shame to take a back seat, and if it can, to leave the room. Shaming yourself or shaming someone else to change their behavior really isn't an effective tool for behavior change modification. So instead, I'm going to introduce two other mental frameworks to help explore stress eating. And the first framework is to put on our curious detective hat. So essentially, if we were to be a detective with a notepad and just be neutral and walk around a room or walk around, AKA the crime scene, and just sort of take it all in, but not jump to conclusions or not jump down our own throats that this was bad and we start finger wagging. If you notice there's finger wagging happening, go put that finger wag away and just come back neutral, non-judgmental, curious. Start to collect clues on the notepad. I'm noticing stress eating happens at this time of night, when I'm alone, when my significant other goes to hockey once a week, for instance, or I notice that when we sit down on the couch to watch TV together, my partner goes and gets a little bowl of ice cream for their self, and that makes me feel left out, and I want a special treat, so I walk up to the kitchen and go grab something. So just notice a name without any judgment. Then the second hat we're going to put on is our wise guide. Our wise guide is loving, it has our best interests at heart, and it's going to try to hold us by the hand and gently show us the way to connect to where we are today, to where we'd like to be, but in a kind, caring, warm, compassionate, non-judgmental way. It's willing to go as fast or slow as you're able to go. That wise guide is really good at meeting you exactly where you're at and not demanding too much of yourself. But it is still there to guide you forward in the direction of better health, in the direction of better care, self-care, in the direction of better self-talk. So that wise guide has your back, but in a really loving and caring way. So the inner bully, not a part of the conversation. So with shame, maybe you need self-compassion as the first step to help you overcome stress eating. Other things like angry emotions like resentment, frustration, anger. Maybe you're going through a bad divorce or breakup. Maybe someone at work said something that really pissed you off and you're ruminating and you're in a bad mood over what's happened to you. Maybe you feel like an injustice has happened against you or someone you care about, or in the larger global sense of our world. Maybe there's an election coming up that is really stressing you out from some of the divisiveness that you're seeing online. So maybe you need to forgive, and maybe you can't forgive or, what's the word I want here? You're not endorsing what's happening, but maybe you need to forgive and let it go for that forgiveness for yourself, for that cutting the cord of the resentment and separating yourself so you can have some peace in your mind and in your heart. Maybe you're just feeling really empty and depleted, and something that fills your cup like going for a nature walk, having a creative outlet. Maybe it's watercolor painting or a coloring book, or you are a knitter, for instance. Maybe it's just putting on some music and jamming out for the night with your dog hanging out on the couch with you. So what is going to fill you up if you're just feeling really drained, really empty, really kind of like, oh, I've got nothing more to give? Anxiety is a huge reason why people stress eat. And if we look at this from a sort of neurobiological level, food is one of the best antidepressants that is available widely in our cupboards. You can get it through the drive-through, you can walk into any grocery store, and there are antidepressants galore in the form of food. Now, if you look at the types of food most people eat when they're anxious and stressed, they tend to go for things that are kind of carby, salty, sweet, often have a crunch, or they have that smooth mouthfeel. So things like ice cream or peanut butter or chocolate, for instance. Well, that in our brain can help to switch on a little bit more serotonin production. And if you think of what some of the antidepressant medications do, which are impacting those serotonin receptors, in a way, without realizing it, you're using food as an antidepressant to get that effect stirred up in your own brain. So again, with non-judgment and pure curiosity from that detective mindset, I can start to understand the connection between why I might be stress eating and why I'm drawn to those particular foods in that moment. With stress, maybe you're just feeling incredibly overwhelmed. You've run out of hours in the day. There's more work than you can possibly get to on your to-do list. You feel unsupported, frazzled, burnt out, like there's too much placed on your shoulders. Well, maybe what you actually need is to go a step at a time. So one of the things I want to give advice here is it's called go to tea with your emotions, or go to tea with tough emotions. What happens with these underlying emotional states is if we just go la, 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 and ignore them and pretend that they're not there, first they show up at your doorstep with a little soft tap, 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 knock on the door. Then, they start to knock a little bit louder. Then they start to pound on your door and ring your doorbell nonstop. And finally, they're kind of like the SWAT team where they come in with the battering ram and knock down the floor and trash your house on the inside. And you're left with like a hurricane that's just hit you. And you're like, what just happened? How did I get here? Well, with this, recognizing your emotions, recognizing the underlying feelings, if you can catch it when it's just a tap, 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 maybe your body's trying to tell you you're exhausted. And the best solution isn't to go eat a bar of chocolate, but to just take a hot shower and go to sleep and call it a day. Maybe you're feeling really lonely and disconnected, and the very best thing is to call a friend or to schedule a meetup with someone that you like and you enjoy hanging out with. Maybe you're feeling really angry and resentful, and the best thing is a hard workout where you can go blow off some steam. Maybe you're just feeling really annoyed with people, and what you need is alone time, whether it's a walk in the woods, whether it's a bubble bath, whether it's just a half day where someone takes the kids and you get a moment of peace and quiet to just hear your own thoughts and not be interrupted constantly. But what happens is when we ignore the soft knocks and we don't invite those emotions in, and I call it just having tea with the feeling, then those emotions build and build and build to a boiling over point. And then that's usually where stress eating will step in to try to help you just have an escape from that feeling, which gets really, really big inside of us. So you can see that there's many right ways to cope with stress eating, but until you know what the feeling is behind the driver around why you're making that choice, you're not going to be able to offer your body the right solution. Now, here's something that was an amazing reframe that really changed even my own relationship with stress eating, and it's something I love to coach my own clients to do. This particular thought is the thought of I deserve it. So I don't know if your own brain does this. My brain has this sneaky little loophole that will try to justify stress eating with, well, I deserve it. I've been working so hard this week. I deserve the takeout on Friday night. I deserve to crack open the bottle of wine. I deserve this little bit of chocolate. I deserve to go get myself a treat. I noticed, especially when I was in undergrad going through my exam period, I would finish an exam And then, oh, I deserve it. I get to go buy a treat of my choice from the grocery store because I worked so hard on that exam. So if you find yourself using the I deserve it justification, here is a reframe I'd like to give you. When you hear yourself or a client using I deserve it to justify the food choice, stop and actually go, thank you. Thank you for my brain saying I deserve it. Right now, it's trying to use I deserve it as the loophole to justify stress eating in this moment. So I'm going to catch it before it gets to the stress eating point. Thank you for thinking I deserve it. What I deserve it really means is it means that it's requiring a solution to a particular feeling. I feel like I worked hard, therefore I deserve a break, not the food. I worked hard, I deserve the break. Or I've pushed myself really, really hard at work and I want to celebrate a big milestone. Maybe I deserve a little weekend getaway or, just something that's going to feel kind of indulgent. It doesn't mean you always have to be a consumer and go buy stuff, but just what do you deserve to feel better without food being the solution? Maybe it's that you've been working so hard, you deserve a date night with your spouse. You deserve to go see your family that lives a couple hours away that you haven't had time to visit because you've been hustling so hard. Maybe you deserve just a long weekend and an extra day off. Take a Monday off, take a Friday off. You've been burning the midnight oil and working so hard, so late into the night. Take that time back and gift yourself time off as opposed to stress eating. So now, whenever I hear my brain go, I deserve it, insert food, I actually stop and go, thanks, brain. That phrase now means I deserve something. What is it that I deserve? An early bedtime, a walk outside, time with my pet, a date night, a visit with my family, something kind of special like a little mini vacation. What do I deserve here that's not food related? Now, my second follow-up to I deserve it is I deserve to get rewarded for my hard work in that I go to the gym regularly. I eat lots of veggies. I drink my water. I make lean protein choices. I eat smart carbohydrates and healthy fats. I work really hard at my nutrition and really hard on my fitness. I deserve to be rewarded to have lots of energy. I deserve to feel comfortable in my own body and in my own skin. I deserve to have a long and healthy life. I deserve to feel my very best. So I don't want to compromise all those great positive choices I've been making just because in this little moment I'm identifying this emotion doesn't feel good and I'm stressed, angry, overwhelmed, lonely, bored, lacking excitement. I don't want to give all of those I deserve it's up of I deserve to feel great, to have good energy, to look and feel my best, to have a long and healthy lifespan. Because right now food is it's trying to inch its way in to help me feel better in this moment. And how much better does it feel when you understand what the backlog feeling is and you actually match the feeling with the right solution? You're going to walk away feeling like $1,000,000. So I'm going to give you one last analogy before we wrap up today's topic on stress eating. I don't know if anyone can relate to this game, but it's one of the ones I remember from being a child. And it was a memory game of flipping over and matching cards. So you'd flip over like a picture of a cat, and then you'd have to go among the stack of cards laid out on the table and try to flip over the other card with a picture of a cat. But if you got it wrong, you flip the two cards back over, and maybe you flip over a candlestick and you're looking for the other candlestick. So you get the point. It's a game of memory. Well, if you think about this activity of if feelings could talk, think of it like from a curious detective standpoint, you're flipping over card number 1. What's the feeling here that maybe my body, my brain don't like that's trying to use food or alcohol to manage that feeling and feel better? And instead of flipping over the food card or the alcohol card, we're going to keep that card turned over and we're going to try to flip over the best matching card to address that uncomfortable feeling so we can feel better, identify the emotion, go to tea with the tough emotion, and then give a solution that best matches off with that feeling. Am I stressed? And would a walk be best? Am I stressed? And would a hot shower and an early bedtime feel better? Am I stressed? And would checking in with a therapist help me out? Am I stressed? And I need to just stop procrastinating and tackle a step on a project I've been putting off. Am I stressed? And I just need to call a friend about it. Lots of different suggestions there. But what card can you flip over that feels just right in this particular moment? So to summarize on today's conversation around stress eating, first of all, understand what the card number one is, which is what's the feeling behind the stress? What's the feeling behind the drive to go eat or drink and make yourselves feel better? Two, be a curious detective and a wise guide. Collect clues, notice and name the pattern, and then hand that note card over of clues to your wise guide. And your wise guide is just going to take your hand with love, compassion, non-judgment, and kindness. It's going to get really curious, really kind, and really honest. And it's going to help you figure out, are there any suggestions it could recommend that will help you cope with that particular feeling, but without using food or alcohol as a way you're trying to numb out, get a little bit of a serotonin high, forget about your problems for that moment, and ultimately leave feeling worse than you started because you're stuck in a not so positive pattern. And physically, it doesn't feel great, after stress eating from a place of not hunger, but emotional hunger. So I hope that's a really helpful framework, whether that be for yourself and you're just trying to pick up some great tips to eat a little bit better, whether you happen to be a health and wellness coach on the coaching side of things. But thank you for spending some time today. I'm Jennifer Broxterman. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm so honored to have gotten to spend a little bit of time with you on this topic. See you in the next one.